Alexander the Great, one of history's most brilliant military commanders who conquered a vast empire stretching from Greece to India. But at just 32 years old, his life was tragically cut short. What if Alexander hadn't died? What if he had lived longer? How might history have been different? Let's explore the possibilities. But before we do, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Alexander's empire was unlike any other in the ancient world. By the time of his death in 323 BCE, he had defeated the mighty Persian Empire, founded dozens of cities, and expanded Greek culture across vast territories. But despite his incredible achievements, his sudden death left the world in chaos. When Alexander died, his empire was divided among his generals, leading to decades of warfare and instability. But had he lived longer, the trajectory of his empire, and even world history, could have been radically different. So, what if Alexander had survived? Let's start by looking at what he could have achieved next. First, let's consider his campaign in India. Alexander had already marched into the Indian subcontinent, achieving a major victory at the Battle of the Hydaspes. But after the battle, his soldiers were weary and reluctant to go further. Alexander, always looking for glory, wanted to continue his conquest into the heart of India, possibly reaching the borders of modern-day China. If Alexander had pressed on, could he have crossed the Indian subcontinent and possibly expanded into Central Asia, even challenging the Chinese Empire? This would have been unprecedented. The Silk Road may have come under Greek control much earlier, potentially shaping trade routes and cultural exchanges in ways we can't fully imagine. But what about the Greek world itself? By the time of his death, Alexander had spread Hellenistic culture far and wide, but the stability of his empire relied heavily on his personal leadership. With his untimely death, the unity of his empire dissolved. If he had lived longer, he could have solidified these new territories, perhaps creating a truly unified empire under Greek rule, with a sophisticated political structure that endured for centuries. Imagine a world where Alexander didn't die at 32. Greek culture, philosophy, and science could have flourished across a vast portion of Asia, potentially accelerating the spread of knowledge. Would early discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, or medicine have been advanced by centuries? What role might Alexandria, the great city he founded, have played as a global center of learning? Perhaps a golden age of Hellenistic science would have emerged much sooner, changing the course of scientific history. Now, let's step back and ask the big question. Would Rome have even emerged as the dominant power in the Mediterranean if Alexander had lived longer? As the Macedonian Empire weakened after his death, Rome rose to fill the power vacuum. But what if Alexander had unified his empire and laid a strong foundation? Would Rome have had the same opportunity to grow, or would the world have been shaped by a stronger Greek-led empire? Perhaps the ancient world would have seen a prolonged Greek-Roman rivalry. Maybe, instead of Rome dominating, we could have witnessed a world where the Greek-speaking Macedonian Empire was the superpower. This could have dramatically altered the history of Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa. Even more intriguing is the question of leadership. Alexander was a visionary, but he wasn't alone. His generals, known as the Diadochi, were skilled military leaders who helped expand and maintain his empire. But Alexander's death triggered a bloody struggle for power. Had he lived, could he have successfully passed the baton to one of his trusted generals? Or would he have ruled until the end, consolidating his empire into a more centralized structure? Imagine Alexander, now a seasoned leader, refining his governance skills and focusing on administration. A more organized and stable empire could have emerged, one that prioritized infrastructure, trade, and communication over the chaos that followed his death. And what about the fusion of cultures? One of Alexander's most notable achievements was the blending of Greek and Eastern cultures, creating the Hellenistic world. If he had lived longer, would this cultural synthesis have reached even greater heights? What if Greek ideas had influenced Indian, Persian, and even Chinese philosophies? The world could have witnessed a cultural and intellectual fusion that transcended borders, leading to an earlier era of globalization. Alexander's vision of a world where East meets West could have accelerated the exchange of ideas, leading to advancements in art, technology, and philosophy. The Hellenistic period might have become the true foundation for the modern world, centuries ahead of its time. But as we all know, His death led to the rapid disintegration of his empire. The vast territories he conquered were divided among his generals, and over time, these fragments would evolve into different kingdoms and empires, losing the unity Alexander had dreamed of. If Alexander had lived longer, would his empire have thrived? Would he have been remembered not only as a conqueror, but as the architect of a truly unified and lasting empire? Or would the complexities of governance and rebellion have overwhelmed him? We'll never know. History is shaped by the lives and deaths of extraordinary figures like Alexander the Great. Though his life was tragically short, his legacy echoes through the centuries. But in this alternate reality where Alexander lived on, the world may have looked very different indeed. This is Dynasties and Tales bringing history to life. And see you next time.